Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm very glad to be here. And today, I know you read the topic, was there Jesus and the cure, but a sudden change at last minute, and we are going to talk about the presence of the spirits in our daily lives. And in order for us to start this conversation, it's not a conversation at this moment, only after 40 minutes then we are allowed to exchange ideas. We have to ask the first question to us. Because if we do not believe in spirits, how come we are going to believe they can cause any influence in our daily lives? So the first question of the Medium's book is, are there spirits? This is in the first chapter of the Medium's book. And we should have a clear and concise idea about spirits, because in the beginning we thought was something, spirits were created by God as a different class of beings. And if they're created by God as a different class of beings, it means they have some kind of privilege. If we go back to the Spirit's book in question 13, it's a pretty big question when Allan Kardec asks about the attributes of the divinity. Actually, the whole chapter talks about attributes of the divinity. And on question 13, it asks all the attributes of divinity. God is supremely intelligent, is the first cause of all things, and many attributes. And when you go to the last statement from the spirits, it says God is supremely just and good. So if He is just, He did not create some kind of privilege among the whole creation. So He simply creates us all equal, simple, without knowledge, sort of ignorant, completely ignorant because we don't know anything. And we are going to evolve, we're going to establish based on the effort that we are going to acquire. We're going to go step by step, reaching a level of perfection as far as moral, as far as intellectual. So, are there spirits? Another question that we can ask is also in the Medium's book, and we will see complementing these questions, that question, are there spirits? And I will ask you these questions. Do you think, this is literally written on the Medium's book, do you think that the beings within us who thinks during earthly life no longer thinks after death? Let me read it from here. What do you think? That if this think, it no longer thinks of those whom it has loved. Do you think the love that we have for anyone, a love that the father has for a son or daughter, or simply the love that we feel by others is simply finished, ends by the grave? So let's do another. This is a question I'm asking you, and asking me also. That if it does think of those whom it has loved, it nonetheless does not wish to communicate with them. Who doesn't want to communicate with anyone that you love so much? It's difficult to conceive this, yes? Because when we love, we feel like being around, talking to the person, being with the person. So it's only natural that we feel like being together. Another question. That if it can be anywhere it wants to be, the spirit, it cannot be right here beside us. Beside us. Maybe there are spirits beside you guys. It's a possibility. I believe, but it's a possibility. Going up? Oh, a gene. So another question, 5. That if it is right here beside us, it nevertheless cannot communicate with us. Do you think this is possible? So how can we possibly consider the love that once tied us to a loved one will simply cease to exist after the end of the physical body? Or maybe sometimes of hatred, of vengeance, because we have not only feelings of love, but we have feelings not very good, not very in tune with love and harmony and peace. So can that be carried on to the beyond? Do you guys think that once we pass to the other dimension, we simply, okay, I'm becoming an angel with wings, all the vices that I carry on simply are going to finish and disappear? It's difficult to believe this. Logical and rationality do not invite us to think this way. So Allan Kardec, thinking about this question, asked to the spirits if they make any influence in our daily lives. And we can find this question on the Spirit's book on question 459. Do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? And the answer is, their influence on you in this regard is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who will guide you. So some people think, based on this question, the answer of the spirits, that we are at hands of the spirits. We are simply puppets in the hands of the spirits. But let's think about the questions that we presented before this slide. The ones that have feelings of love, but the ones that have feelings of hatred, of vengeance. So it depends, the syntony, the affinity that we establish in our thoughts. We emit waves, and these waves are going to be captured, because according to science, a mental thought, when we think, we emit some kind of waves, and these waves are going someplace else, and we can have short waves, long waves, medium waves, and according to the quality of these waves, we're going to establish a connection between this other dimension that we don't know yet very much. But the Spiritist doctrine, the Spiritist teachings present us in many aspects so we can dive in and to help us out how to behave in a better way in order for us to get in tune with the good spirits, with the good sentiments, with the harmonical wave and that harmonical line of thought, if I can say this. So, in this case, the influence of the spirits could happen because once we establish this mental wave, we are going to attract the good ones and the bad ones. When I say the bad ones, nobody is bad for the rest of their eternity. But at this moment, we are trying to be a little, we're evolving. Maybe I'm a little confused for you guys, but it just, for example, here on the face of the earth, in this realm that we are at this moment, we have our affinity, we have our friendships, and we get along with the ones that think pretty much like us. I'm pretty sure you guys don't go with gangsters or stuff like that outside because it's simply, you guys don't have affinity with this. But you're looking for what? You're looking for affinity, you're looking for love, you're looking for harmony. Sometimes we go down a little bit in our frequency, and then we establish some kind of friendship, companionship that might be not very in tune with our destination. But little by little, we are trying to be more harmonized with this law that rules the whole universe. So in this matter, in this case, we can be influenced by the spirits according to the line of thinking, the line of thought, the actions that we promote, the behavior, and we are going to attract more or less. And since we're being influenced by the ones that are here, for example, if Sandra give me an opinion, Marcelo, I think you should do this way. And I says, why, Sandra? Because of this, because of that. And if I agree with her, I might follow her advice. The same way, when we are in tune with the Spirit that wants to guide us, could be to the wrong way or to the right way. But simply, they cannot be not very in tune with this right or wrong. They don't know better. And they give advice to us according to their level of evolution. And once we are in synchrony with this kind of feeling of hatred, of vengeance, or of love or harmony, we are going to attract those, and we can be maybe potentialized by their thoughts, and sometimes we end up doing what they want us to do. And we think, I did this because of me. Sometimes a big chunk of influence was given to you without even you knowing that this was happening. In this sense, the question 459 answers when the spirits answer if they influence us more than you believe. And we think sometimes it's us doing. So that's why we have to be very cautious and careful. How do we think? There is a whole invisible universe in many dimensions that we are immersed in. We are in an ocean of waves, many, many waves. And let's be very cautious for us to be in tune with the line of thought that we want to go. Is that right? Well, so let's go to another slide. The slide number 5. It's pretty much what we are saying. Do we have our own thoughts plus others that are suggested to us? Your soul is a spirit who thinks by itself. Nevertheless, you must have noticed that many thoughts occur to you at the same time with regards to the same subject, and that they frequently contradict one another. Well, they are always a combination of your own ideas and other spirits' ideas, and this is what renders you uncertain. You have several ideas within your mind battling it out with each other. So, as we said before, science has proven that when we think, we emit a sort of a wave. Let's think that we are a radio, AM, FM. When you feel like listening of some kind of music, for example, classical music, you go to a station, you adjust the button, and you will capture this kind of waves, this kind of radio station, and you will hear the classical music. If you want to hear some rock, you simply twist the button, turn the button, and you will see this. So let's think that we are a gigantic radio capturing, and a big antenna capturing everything. But we are going to capture these waves according to the way that we feel, the way that we behave. So in this case, we're going to establish a connection with the Spirit who wants to cause any influence on us. It could be our guardian angels. Going back to the beginning of the questions, when we talk about the spirits, when I mentioned that some people, because they don't know better, think spirits, angels are a different part of a creation, someone that has the privilege to be created with perfection. We can imagine something like this. For example, Andrea is my wife, but she's way above me. She incarnated beside me because she loved me so much. That's what I hope, yeah? So she loved me so much, but I am very unevolved, one. But because of her love, it says like, you know what? I am going to dive into flesh. I'm going to use this terminology. I'm going to incarnate. One day I'm going to meet you. I'm going to convince you that I'm going to have to marry you. You will accept or something. Of course, it was the other way around. So what happened is, after I die, after we both die, she goes to a different level of evolution, a more evolved realm of spirituality. And then it could happen this way. For example, she's still looking after me, trying to see, okay, Marcelo did a big jump in this life, but there's still a lot to go. And there's still a lot for her to go to, of course, because this ladder of evolution goes all the way. It's infinite, infinite. And the destiny is perfection, not total perfection, because otherwise we're going to be equal to God. And this ladder is infinite. So what happened is, guardian angels could be someone that because of this big jump in evolution, simply follow us. And once they are in the invisible realm of life, they get this task, asking the permission to follow Marcelo. And Andrea will become one day maybe my guardian angel, or maybe the other way around. And so what happened is, she's way above me, but she's still following me with much more knowledge, much more love, because she knows my limitation at this moment of my evolution. And what happened? It doesn't mean that she was created perfect by God. Because of her free will and a strong will, she persevered and she goes much faster than me, because I also have a free will. And I can decide if I simply want to do this, I'm going to be like this, laying down and letting life ruling my life instead of me ruling the life that I want to live. But she did something very much bigger than me. And one day, I will follow her. I will follow her. Well, I'm being like more philosophical, but this is truly what happens in a very simple way to explain. And we can see, for example, the way that we behave, the way that we think, the way that we emanate our feelings and our sentiments, we can be in tune with higher spirits. And I'm going to bring you two examples. We can give St. Francis of Assisi, for example. St. Francis of Assisi, when he asked, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, it means, I remember Mother Teresa, I'm simply a pencil in God's hands. When he was like this, make me an instrument of your peace, he was always in this mode of donation towards humanity. Can you imagine what kind of spirits, the spirituality that was around St. Francis of Assisi and many others, because he belongs to the Catholic Church. But we can mention from other religions that has this mode of donation, of love, of sincerity, of fraternityhood. We can see in the example of Paul of Tarsus. Paul of Tarsus says, therefore, since we too are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us leave behind everything that hinders. This is the letters. Paul wrote this letter to the Hebrews in 12:1, bringing to our attention that we are always surrounded by a large cloud of spirit witnesses who follow our every step, taking note of our attitudes, our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions. When we consider this, we remember the friendly suggestion of Divaldo Pereira Franco of not doing behind closed doors what we would not do in public, because in reality, we are always in companion of spirits. Could be bad or good. So how can we distinguish between our own thoughts and those that are suggested to us? And we go to the slide number 8. When a thought is suggested to you, it is like a voice speaking to you. Your own thoughts are usually those that occur to you at first impulse. Actually, you should not concern yourself with such a distinction, and it is often more useful not even to know about it. You act more freely if you make the right decision. You will act more willingly if you make the wrong one. Your responsibility will be greater. This is on Spirit's book, also in question 461. And Allan Kardec was so eloquent about this questioning, his questioning to the good spirits, that in considering to the answer above, he comes back and asks also the following. How can we tell if a suggested thought comes from a good or an evil spirit? Study the matter. Good spirits give only good advice. It is your responsibility to make the distinguish. So this is very clear here, that we are the ones to make the distinction. Many times we blame the spirits for our actions, as I said before, but in reality we are not puppets in their hands, because the final saying, the final words belong to us. And we can see sometimes when a friend betrayed us, caused any damage, maybe because of the state of evolution that we are at this moment, what we feel is like, I'm going to pay him back. I'm going to do exactly the same for him to feel, or for her to feel exactly, because we feel hurted. It's natural, it's human at this point of evolution. And my advice, not only to you, it's to me, let's pay attention, because once we think, we emit this wave, and we can be capturing friends at the other dimension. They're simply because of having the same indignity feeling by others, not necessarily by the one that betrayed us. Come closer to us, because sometimes we feel this, we see this. For example, we have many associations, many groups of people like having the same problems as far as marriage, alcoholism, drugs, and everything. And we get together because it's good not to be alone and trying to exchange experiences so we cannot feel alone in this problem. But sometimes when we emit this kind of wave, we end up sometimes, if these waves are very consistent and we persevere in keeping and feeding this sentiment, creating a constancy and emitting this wave, and we will end up attracting these spirits, the complicated ones, and we end up the day feeling like it's not like this, like killing that person, choking him like, oh, I hate this so much. I remember a case when I was many years ago. A friend of mine, said something to me that it hurt me. And I said, oh my God, how come that guy said this to me? He didn't know anything. And then, by the end of the day, I was feeling so bad. So like, oh my God, I have to go there. I have to talk to him. I have a whole bunch of feelings. And I noticed, now that I know the knowledge of the Spirit, the Spirit's doctrine, I know this was probably what happened with me. It simply got potentialized by many, because I was like, every hour at that day, I was, no, could be that way. No, of course, he thought this way. And I was ending up that was so simple in the beginning, and end up, I was trying to create the Third World War with this guy. And he was simply okay. It was simply a moment of natural disagreement that happened with us, and this is what happened. So that's why we have to pay attention with our thoughts. So the question is, can we avoid the influence of spirits who incite us to wrongdoing? And the answer is yes, because they only attack themselves to those who solicit them with their desires of attract with their thoughts. If you go a little further, by what means can we neutralize the influence of evil spirits? By doing good and placing all your trust in God. You repel their influence and you destroy the power they desire to have over you. Guard yourself against listening to the suggestions of spirits who excite evil thoughts in your mind. Those who incite discord and arouse in you all the evil passions. Above all, distrust spirits who flatter your pride, for they are attacking you at your own weakest point. That is why Jesus teaches you to say in the Lord's Prayer, Lord, do not let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So whenever a negative thought crosses our mind, let's try to neutralize this. And how can we, I'm going to try to find, give you a hint about a very important tool that can neutralize thoughts of hatred, of vengeance, of discomfort that we might be experiencing from time to time, is prayer. Sometimes we have to meditate and pray. And people say, like, what is the difference between meditation and pray? When we meditate, we make inner silence. Because on our daily lives, we have our minds so in a rush. So many, we don't have, like, we don't allow our minds to be in a quiet mode. Because we want to solve this, we want to do this, we want to do everything. Try to meditate, it means like, try to do inner silence. Be in silence. It doesn't mean to be like, it doesn't have to be like in the top of the mountain, in the forest. Of course helps, of course. But inner silence, it can be done sometimes at your work. But pay attention if your boss are not paying attention if you're working or making meditation. So you can do like in your bedroom in silence. Go there, make silence. Try to establish this inner silence within you. And then, once you acquire this, pray. Because when you pray sincerely, with heartfelt, we establish this bridge between you and the above. And if the prayer is very sincere and doesn't have to follow a rule, certain words, certain nothing, a prayer could be as simple as, God, help me. And that's it. Once comes from your heart, I don't know the answer. I might be wrong. Give me strength. Make me an instrument of your peace, as St. Francis of Assisi was mentioning. Once it's sincere, you will establish this bond. And sometimes you're not going to listen the answer. Because sometimes the answer is the silence that we need to pay attention in order for us to persevere and to have patience with the one that's subject to our problems. So sometimes the answer will come after, maybe a month later, maybe a year later, maybe many, many years later. So be patient, be quiet, meditate, and establish this habit of prayer. And this is what's happening on the next slide. Yes, because does prayer make people better? Yes. Let me read it from here. Because those who pray fervently and confidently strengthen themselves against the temptation of evil, and God sends them good spirits to assist them. Such help is never refused when sincerely asked for. This is on the Spirit Spoken, question 660. I want to give you guys a true example, a concrete example of how can we be influenced by the spirits. And this is our last slide. Wedding at Cana. And maybe many of you will think like, well, how this wedding of Cana can be connected with the topic that we choose at this moment. Many years ago, more than 35 years ago, a very close friend of mine used to belong to a group of volunteers visiting a prison and taking the message of the good news, of the gospel, in order to lift the spirits of the prisoners there. So you can imagine a prison is a very difficult place. Can you imagine the vibrations, the line of thoughts they are crossing their minds of that man? So it's a very complicated place. So once a month, this group of volunteers attended to this place, trying to speak a little bit, to speak something to those prisoners. So in a determined moment, near Christmas time, this friend of mine, who belonged to this group of volunteers, was scheduled to speak about something, but he couldn't come up with anything to address to those people close to the Christmas time. So he had no idea what he would say at such special time to those hardened hearts. And there was one man, specifically one prisoner, who would never ever participate in those meetings. All other prisoners would participate except for this one. And so, this friend of mine, thinking of this man and how he could touch his heart, he got up that morning, it was a Sunday, and said a prayer. And suddenly, he heard a voice. It seems he heard a voice. In his mind, he thought he was hearing a voice, loud and very clear inside of his mind. And this voice told him this: you will tell the story of the wedding at Cana. And he thought it was a weird topic, considering it was near Christmas time. But he decided to do it anyway because he heard it so clear, so loud, that voice inside of his mind, that, okay, I'm going to talk about this and let's see what's going to end up. Well, the wedding at Cana, for those who didn't know exactly what it means, it's a very significant story about a wedding that Jesus attended. And because the wine ends, so Jesus turns, invited to turn water into wine. So, he told the story inside of that prison there, with great love, with great emotion, with lots of sentiment. And at the end of the message that he was saying, he comes with an idea that crosses his mind. When you accept Jesus, not Jesus like the figure, the teachings, because people say like, oh, I have to accept Jesus. No, Jesus doesn't want you to accept that guy. He wants to accept the message, love one another. And we can see this all around the globe. Love one another. Love your enemies. Love everybody. When you accept this message of love, this message of good conduct, anyone could change the course of their lives from water to wine. As he was leaving, so they end up the talk. Everybody was emotional because, of course, it's simple the way I am saying now. But that time, because it was close to Christmas time, all the prisoners there, many are crying, feeling lonely, missing their families, with so many thoughts. But that specific man, always sitting in the back of that room, always closed, head down, not even participated in, as I mentioned before. And when they finished, Everybody was leaving their room. And that guy, that man, stand up, look at this man, grab him by the arm, and ask this question. Hey, do you really believe everything that you just said? Do you really believe this? That we can change the course of our lives, even for one, just like me, condemned to hell? You don't know what you're saying. And that guy looked at him at the eyes, and he noticed there was some kind of problems, a lot of pain in his eyes. And they look at each other, and this guy, my friend, says like this, my friend, I truly believe what I just said. I truly believe. And the guy replied, no, you don't know what you're saying. You don't know, because this place is a living hell. Sometimes I hear voices in my mind. Sometimes I hear voices in my mind just like there's someone right beside me, instigating me, inviting me to kill the ones that stays on the cell, on the prison with me. And after that, I hear the same voice. And after that, you kill yourself. You don't know what you're saying. And then this guy sees a race. Many of you already know he was one of the speakers last year. Grabbed him by the two arms and said this. And now was something deep and strong that was established between the two lines, the two eyes. Believe me, I truly believe this. I know that you're facing a very difficult trial here. And I don't know if I would have the same strength if I were in your shoes. But I am going this advice. I truly believe this. Believe and you will see. One day your life will change. That guy, a tear crossed his eyes, felt like this, and a little smile was given by him. And then they look at each other. They sort of hug each other. Not very strong. At least some kind of connection was established. So, a few years went by, the volunteer work at the prison was over. And my friend went on about his life normally, speaking at different spiritual centers, at different places. And life goes on. After this 30 years, 40 years, this speaker, Cesar Reyes, was invited to speak in a very small spiritual center in a very poor area of Rio de Janeiro. Not a spiritual center like this with PowerPoint and everything. With clay floor, benches made of wood. Nothing fancy. Very small. And then he was invited there. So he went up, sat in the front row waiting for the director to give him the directions, how long he should speak and everything. And then that guy, an old man with white hair, small stature, came to him, sat beside him and said like this, well, do you remember me? And this guy, Cesar Reyes, looked at him, says like, oh, it's you. It was the man at the prison. And says, oh my God, it's you. Yes, it's me. And he was smiling and all different because he says like, I follow your advice. It was very hard. Sometimes I felt like still killing my friends, the friends that are over there. And then I established to not listening to the voices of the spirits that were giving me so much influencing me. And was really, really hard. I end my sentence. I was free, without a job, without food. I was hungry, I was cold. But I remember that day when you said this to me. And I decided to put my free will to work towards my own benefit. And this is what I did. And now after 30 years, I am here listening to a different kind of voice, a different kind of influence. And then Cesar Rey says like that, well, once at that day, I made a prayer and I heard a voice in the morning. And I decided to follow that advice. And we all don't know exactly how we all can be influenced by the voices of the other side of realm. They hug each other, they smiled, they cried a lot, and it was one of the most beautiful lectures that they heard at that moment. Simple, very simple, but with the presence of love that we cannot even can imagine. Sometimes we complicate too much, and that lecture was beautiful. So this is the lecture that I would like to bring it to you guys, and inviting you to pay attention to the line of thought that are crossing our minds, because they could be very harmful, they could be very harmonical, but we have, as we said before, the final saying, which line of thoughts we would like to have crossing our minds, so we can establish this connection with the other side of life. Thank you so much.